Hello again, everyone. This is Lauren, the Mondays at Racine Nutrition Coordinator. Today we're going to discuss some homemade comfort food recipes. So I'm sure that we're all getting a little tired of being cooped up indoors, but if you can't find the time to take a walk or you don't have the energy to do a little light exercise, that's okay. It's important to be loving and gentle with ourselves as we're going through this unprecedented time in history. Many people turn to comfort foods to boost their mood or for self-soothing. So today we're going to look at some healthy ways that we can take old comfort food recipes and make them a little more nutrient dense. That way we're keeping ourselves healthy and well while we feel like we're treating ourselves to old classic comfort foods. Since a lot of people have been taking to baking during this time at home, I'm also going to discuss a couple of desserts that incorporate mood-boosting chocolate, but also have added health benefits. For this recipe, you can use regular potatoes or even instant mashed potatoes if that's all that you have on hand, but I like to make this with sweet potatoes. It packs added nutrient benefits. They're really high in vitamin A. They're low glycemic index. Sweet potatoes are also anti-inflammatory. They help manage stress level because they have a significant amount of magnesium in them. And I like to make shepherd's pie with lentils because they have no fat, they're high in iron, folate, they improve electrolyte activity, they improve digestion, and they help build muscles because they're protein dense. So for this recipe, you'll preheat the oven while you prepare your filling. You're going to saute your veggies in olive oil and cook them until they're soft. You'll also then, at the same time as your veggies are cooking, you can cook your lentils in broth, or you can use a bouillon cube or just water. This is really flavorful even if you don't have a bouillon cube or you don't have broth. You can just cook the lentils in water and drain them and then add them to your veggie mix. Once your lentils are cooked through and they're soft, you're going to add them to your vegetables and you're going to add a quarter cup of barbecue sauce. You can use any kind of barbecue sauce you like. If you don't have any on hand, you could use a little steak sauce, you could use a little soy sauce, or whatever other seasonings that you might have on hand that you like. And once that's all mixed well, you're going to flatten the vegetables down in the bottom of an oven-proof skillet if that's what you are using to saute your vegetables. If you don't have an oven-proof skillet, you can also use a casserole dish. Then after your vegetables are in a flat layer, you'll add your mashed sweet potatoes, and that recipe for the mashed sweet potatoes is actually on the next slide. After the potatoes are laid on top of the lentils, you're going to cook this savory pie in the oven for about 20 minutes or until it's slightly browned on top or you see it kind of bubbling all the way through. The sweet potatoes for the shepherd's pie is pretty easy. You can either use 2 bags of frozen sweet potatoes cubed, or you can use about 6 large sweet potatoes, peel them, chop them, and place them in a pot and cover with water. Once this is boiling, you'll cook for about 25 minutes or until tender. Once it's boiling, you turn it down and just let it simmer for about 25 minutes. You'll then drain the potatoes, and then once they're drained, put them back into the pot. You can add olive oil, or if you choose to use butter, you can do that as well. Your choice of milk, I use an unsweetened almond milk, or you can use plain yogurt if you have that on hand, or even sour cream or regular milk, whatever you usually use for your mashed potatoes will also work for this. And you're going to mash that with a hand masher, or you can use a beater and blend it until it's smooth and creamy, and then season it to taste. You can put a little bit of salt and pepper if you'd like. This is excellent with the shepherd's pie recipe, or you can just serve this as a nutrient-dense side alongside a different meal. So this is a take on a lasagna, but it's no pasta. We use zucchini for this, and zucchini is about 95% water. It's also really high in antioxidants. It helps with digestion. It can strengthen your eyesight. It's low in fat and sodium. It's high in potassium and fiber. So this is an excellent alternative to pasta. To make the dish less watery, I suggest that you cut the zucchini very thinly. You can use one of those like vegetable kind of slicer things that might be in the middle of your cheese grater, or you can just slice this as thin as you can with a knife. And then you're going to layer it out on either a baking sheet or a cutting board and salt it. So salt will draw out the water. You can let that sit for about 15 minutes and then pat it dry. And then you'll preheat your oven to 400. In a medium bowl, you'll mix ricotta with an egg. On the next slide, I have a recipe for a homemade ricotta that's dairy-free. That's really good. You won't even notice the difference, unless, of course, you eat ricotta every day. So then once you have your ricotta and egg mixture, you're going to spread a half a cup of sauce on the bottom. You can use a jar of sauce, a can of sauce, or your own homemade sauce. I make a pretty quick tomato sauce with just a boxed tomato and garlic with some parsley and basil, teeny little bit of salt. Cook it for about an hour, but you could go the easy way with this and just use a jar of sauce. So once you have about a half a cup of sauce on the bottom of the casserole dish, you're going to layer your zucchini slices, then top with enough ricotta just to cover it. It doesn't have to be like tons of it. And then a little bit of your shredded cheese. There's a lot of vegan shredded cheeses on the market now. Vio Life is really good. It melts really well, tastes really good. Of course, you could just use your own regular ricotta, but if you were going to make this vegan with my ricotta recipe and use a vegan mozzarella, you can do that as well. They're typically vegan mozzarella is typically lower in saturated fat and sodium. Not all the time, but they really are pretty good now. They have so many alternatives coming out on the market. So you're going to continue to layer the zucchini, the ricotta, the shredded cheese, and sauce, and repeat until all your ingredients are done. And then sprinkle a little extra shredded cheese on top. You're going to bake this for 45 minutes or until the top is crispy or bubbling, a little browned, and serve this hot. If it's still a little watery when it's done, just serve this with a slotted spatula. So here is my cauliflower cashew ricotta recipe. I mentioned that you can use a clove of garlic or a tablespoon of minced garlic, but in one of my other presentations, I mentioned that I have the frozen garlic cubes. That's what I used for this, which was great because it's already minced already and you don't have to get garlic smell on your hands. So for this recipe, it adds a whole nother vegetable to your lasagna, so that's a plus side. And it's also higher in fiber. It's loaded with nutrients. Cashews have good fat, which is good for your heart, and cauliflower is loaded with lots of vitamins. So for this, you can use either fresh cauliflower if you have, but I used a bag of frozen. So you'll use a bag of frozen cauliflower, 2 cups of raw cashews. You're going to soak the cashews in boiling water for 20 minutes. Just boil the water in your tea kettle and then pour the water on top of the cashews and let that sit. And while the cashews are soaking, you'll add the cauliflower to a pot and cover it with water. Allow it to boil, then turn it down and cook it for 10 minutes. Strain the cauliflower, and when that's done, I saved about a cup of the cauliflower cooking water. You'll place the cauliflower and the cashews drained into a food processor. Add the remaining cup that you left on the side of your cooking water, a little bit of the olive oil. I said about 1/4 of a cup of olive oil, but you don't have to use 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. You could use a little less. It depends on your needs. And the garlic. You'll process that until it's about the consistency of ricotta cheese. If you notice that it's a little too crumbly, you can add a little more olive oil or a little more water. And you can use this for the lasagna recipe or for baked ziti, or just, you could even serve this alongside a vegetable. You can mix it with spinach. There's lots of different ways you could use this. I really like this recipe. Okay, so moving on to dessert, the fun stuff. Dark chocolate or cacao has been consumed for thousands of years, and there was a lot of noted benefits years ago, but now there's growing actual scientific evidence that shows that pure dark chocolate has a variety of health benefits. It has flavonols. It rates high on the oxygen radical absorbance capacity scale, which means that it can actually eliminate free radicals in our body. It can improve cardiac function by lowering blood pressure. It can reduce arterial plaque. It's high in fiber, low in glycemic index, and improves cholesterol ratio. This strengthens your bones from the mineral content because dark chocolate is really high in minerals, and it has caffeine, which helps fight fatigue. I want to make sure that I mention that I'm talking about like a baker's chocolate or pure dark chocolate, something that's higher in dark chocolate percentage and lower in sugar. So when I'm talking about these chocolate health benefits, I don't mean like a Cadbury egg, if you have any of those left, but baker's chocolate or even the Hershey unsweetened chocolate powder really is super high in fiber and is super mood boosting. So I'm going to discuss some recipes that can include some chocolate. I notice a lot of people have been baking recently while they're in quarantine. So I added this recipe because some of you might have had this at our Mondays events. It's always a big hit, so I thought that I would share it here again in case you missed out on it when I had brought it to some of the events. This recipe involves sweet potato, which I've already mentioned has a variety of health benefits. You can use canned sweet potato puree, which is available in the grocery store either near the pumpkin in the baking aisle or by the canned vegetables. They have an organic one, and I think there might even be like a Stop and Shop brand. Or you can use pureed sweet potato either from fresh or frozen sweet potatoes. As I mentioned before, you could use bags of frozen cubed sweet potatoes, or you could just peel and chop your sweet potatoes and boil them. This recipe includes almond or peanut butter, but you can use an allergy-friendly substitute if you like cashew or sunflower seed butter. You'll preheat your oven to 325 and grease an 11x7 baking dish with cooking spray. In a small saucepan, you're going to gently heat the nut butter so that it's easily stirred and smoother. In a large mixing bowl, you'll mix together the nut butter and the sweet potato puree. And then you're going to add in the milk and the vanilla extract. In a separate bowl, you'll whisk together the flour, either regular flour or gluten-free, sugar. I use coconut sugar, but you can use whatever kind of sugar you have. And then you're going to put the pure cocoa powder, the baking powder, salt, and chocolate chips into the dry ingredients. Once you have all your dry ingredients together, you're going to pour the dry into the wet ingredients and fold well until the ingredients are mixed well together. If this is too dry to mix and you're getting like a powdery kind of mess, you can add an additional teaspoon or so of whatever milk you're using. When there are no dry lumps remaining, you're going to smooth the batter into a baking sheet, or like you could even use a Pyrex dish or whatever you really use to make brownies, and you're going to bake on the center rack for 20 minutes. Allow the brownies to cool, and if they're a little too gooey when they're done, you can stick them in the refrigerator for a little bit and that will firm them up. And these will last for up to a week if stored in an airtight container in the refrigerator. So I made this chocolate mousse recipe myself without any sweetener. I used like a teeny little bit of agave, and I had to eat it with a banana to make it a little sweeter. It was a little rough without sweetener. So when I made this recipe for you guys, I included a little more sweetener to make it a little more palatable. But this is a high fiber, high protein recipe that includes a ton of nutrients and fulfills that chocolate need. So you'll preheat your oven to 320 and mix all the ingredients in a medium-sized mixing bowl. If it's too dry, add a little more milk, and you can sweeten this up to taste by adding some more agave or maple syrup if you'd like to do that, and put it in a casserole dish and bake it for about 30 minutes. Wait till it cools. You could even stick it in the fridge, and you can serve this with fresh fruit or whipped cream. Like I said, I had it with a banana. You can have it with a little bit of peanut butter, whatever you like, but I think it's pretty good if you sweeten it. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, nutritional concerns, I'm also available just to chat if you'd like to catch up or if you have anything you need to talk about. I have a background in social work, so I want you all to know that I am here for you during this crazy time if you need anyone to talk with. If you want to schedule a time to FaceTime or Zoom, you can text or email me and we can set up a time that we're both available. I really do miss seeing all of your beautiful faces at our events, and I'm hoping that we're able to reunite soon. So please continue to stay safe, and again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.